Welcome back to the channel. My name is Wyrd and this is my writing reading channel, and this is my April reading vlog. Yeah, let's call it a vlog. So yeah, I managed to finish 5 books this month. Was hoping to finish a little bit more, but it's just one of those months. So also it's rather disappointingly it's 3 non-fiction, or non-fiction and 2 fiction, and I'm kind of not happy with that because I wanted to read more fiction this year. I actually tallied up the amount of books I've read this year so far into non-fiction and fiction. They're about equal, and this year the goal is to read way more fiction than non-fiction, so I need to speed up, or not speed up, but prioritize the fiction. But we are where we are, so let's start with the non-fiction. I read Therese Oneill's Ungovernable. I've previously, last year, I read her Unmentionables, which is about sexuality in women in the Victorian era, and all the very, very interesting manuals that she found about that particular topic. And because I like her writing style, that book is written, and this one as well, is written like a conversation between the author, who is stepping into the stones of the knowledgeable one, and the reader, who is presented by someone who is kind of sassy, really. I like the reader part of this book. It is presented in questions and answers. This book is the Victorian Parent's Guide to Raising Flawless Children, and presents the various ideas and notions that people in the Victorian era, England and America, I believe, what they thought about raising children. And obviously sometimes, a lot of these things we don't agree with nowadays, thankfully, most of us at least. And that is addressed in this book, but as the author points out, we kind of judging the past based on the present is rather unfair, at least when it comes to researching material. We can always take our own moral standpoint and judge it from ourselves, but expecting people of the past to have the same moral standing as we do now, it is rather unfair to them. And what we now know and agree upon when it comes to raising children is quite different from what people believed back in the Victorian era. Oneill does go very, I have to say, I feel like she goes very carefully into a lot of the topics. A lot of the topics are difficult to handle, and I feel that she handles them delicately, reasonably. Some of the things that happened with Victorian children, it was horrendous, and it was honestly quite disgusting, but this book deals delicately with the material, so I am thankful for that. And yeah, I really quite like this book. Also really like the inside cover, like the drawings. And then there are these 3 books that I do talk about more in my first themed video, that is inspired by Iceland, where I decided to read books that are inspired by Iceland. Although I did include a book that is technically not inspired by Iceland, but it does touch on a little bit about Iceland, and that is Michael Booth's The Almost Nearly Perfect People Behind the Myth of the Scandinavian Utopia. Now, I have finished this book. I hadn't quite finished it before I did that video, because I wanted to read the part where he talks about Iceland and find out basically what he was saying. And I have to admit, wasn't impressed. And I'm still not impressed by the chapter in Iceland. I still feel like that should have been cut out. I feel like he included Iceland simply to complete a set. And basically to justify using the Nordic concept, because listen, Iceland and Finland are included in this book, but neither country is Scandinavian. Scandinavian peninsula is a geographical location that includes Norway, Sweden and Denmark. It's a geographical fact. But Scandinavia is a keyword that has been very, very popular and was very popular at the time that this book was written. This particular copy that I have was published in 2015. The original was published in UK in 2014. Well, this book has obviously been quite a few years in the making. Now, the chapter in Iceland, like, it was very obvious that he pretty much... I am convinced that he bought a really, really cheap weekend trip to Iceland, stayed in the hotel in the Reykjavik for a couple of nights, went a little bit, you know, into the country, like Djúpivogur to lick a piece of glacier, basically to say that he did, and then going to Blue Lagoon because everyone goes to Blue Lagoon, and he's a typical Englishman. He goes there to complain that there are other people, just like the British do when they go to Spain. They complain that Spain has Spanish people. Now, I did finish like I said, the rest of the book, mainly because I had finished all but the chapter on Sweden by the time that I filmed that other video, and I kind of felt like I owed it to the Swedish to find out what he did to them, and that chapter kind of infuriated me even more. Like, there are very strange running themes throughout this book. Like, first off, he earned himself minus 1,000,000 points at the very beginning of this book when he refers to Greenland and Faroe Islands as pseudo nations, and then doesn't mention them. Extremely rude, because just because they are not self-governing does not mean that they are not their own nations. So minus 1,000,000 points. The only good chapter in this entire book is a chapter in Finland, and that's because he likes the Finnish, which I can't fault him for that. I quite like the Finnish myself. Now, if only I could convince the Finnish that they are worth being adored. Anyway, the longest chapter is on Denmark, which is understandable. Michael Booth has lived in Denmark. He has a Danish wife, and they have 2 kids, and they live in Denmark. The running themes throughout this book is that he doesn't like state-run alcohol stores, which fair, but he maintains in every single chapter except for the one on Sweden. But he does mention in at least the Icelandic chapter, and I do believe the Norwegian chapter, but at least the Finnish chapter. He has this running idea of every single store being staffed singularly by elderly women who are glaring at him just mentally when he's buying alcohol. Every single one. Which is such a weird take to have. He also has this weird theme of basically putting down the Danish every chance he gets. Like, he seems to be using them as some kind of shield to hide behind. Like, the Danish are the Danish know nothing about Iceland. The Danish are jealous of the Norwegians because they are wealthy. The Danish think that the Finnish are drunk the whole time. Alcoholism is actually not that prevalent in Finland compared to Denmark, but hey. The Danish also think that the Swedes are just stiff boars, and that's like, okay. He doesn't seem to be displaying the Danish influence in his life in a very positive light, which kind of confuses me. Even the epilogue, like, this is a rather weird book. Like, I'm not going back because listen, what he did to the Swedes, I'm like, he owes the Swedes an apology. He goes, like the rants he goes on in the Swedish chapter. He rants about them being too feminist because women are actually free to have children and get an education. He is rather clear about his opinion that women should stay at home to raise children because that's how you get better children. At the same time that he is remarking about how the Swedish economy has been rising because the more people working, including the women, and the Swedish children aren't worse off than the British, despite the fact that their mothers are out working. It's like, pick a side. But also, listen, he could not resist the temptation of naming one of the chapters Stockholm Syndrome. Because this man has to chase the cliches. And what he does in that chapter is talk about how he goes into the streets of, is he in Stockholm or Malmö? Like, honestly, I can't be bothered to check. He goes out in the streets and accosts people for not being his level of polite. Honestly, the English people who live in the town where I live here in Iceland, they would be appalled. If I showed them this book, they would be mortified. He owes the Swedes such a sincere apology for his behavior, like, I am not joking. You do not cuss people on the streets just because you feel like they rushed past you too quickly on the trains and gabiana them about how rude they are. Like, that's not what you do. If you feel that another person is being rude, you don't mention it, because accusing other people of being rude is rude. You can confide in them if everyone is clear and comfortable, but you do not accost strangers on the street to be like, yo, why are you being so rude? And the epilogue, he's like, but still Scandinavia is like the best place to live in the world. And I'm like, that's cute, but you really should have carried that theme and the words that, because the epilogue is quite sweet, but it kind of comes too late. Like, if he had drizzled that throughout the book instead of being the way that he was throughout the book, I would have liked this book more. But as this, I don't know who the target audience was. Like, I don't think it was the Danish, because I don't feel like it displayed them very positively. That they're jealous of everyone or completely ignorant. Like, that's not a very positive light. Is a targeted audience some specific group within the UK? Possibly? I don't know who the target audience for this book is, and I'm disappointed. But at least I finished it. A more delightful book was The Museum of Whales You'll Never See by Kendra Greene. Very much like this book. This book is about the museums in Iceland, and Kendra Greene is an artist and writer, American, and she has an extensive experience with working with museums in America, but she was inspired by the fact that there are so many museums in Iceland compared to how many people there are in Iceland. So she decided to go and just get to know the museums, which I very much appreciate, because museums in Iceland are, well, there's at least one museum in pretty much every single town, so a lot of them are collections and gatherings and shows. They are museums. Most of them are established by a single person, or in a memory of a person, or a historical event, or something that just, museums are very, very personal, and I love the fact that she gets personal with the subject matter, and she is rather lyrical very much throughout, but Although that's not a style that I don't really gravitate towards, very lyrical style of description. I do appreciate this book. It's a very nice, how do you want to put it? It's a nice view of the basically the outsider looking in, and I appreciate this book very, very much. Speaking of books that I appreciate and books that are really rather out of my comfort zone, I read my genuinely first romance since turning an adult. And I picked this book up purely because I was working on that video, and I really wanted something that was fiction because all the other books were like non-fiction. Typed in Iceland and I got this cute little book called Snug in Iceland. It's written by Victoria Walker. This is her first book, and she was inspired by her visit to Iceland, and just that fact alone is just so, I want to say humbling. It makes me so proud that my country inspired someone to write their first book, but it's also really, really humbling because I don't know, I just feel humble, and I really, really adore this book. The cover is about 50% correct. I would say the snow and northern lights, as I said in the video, if we had this type of tree line in Iceland, we would be so happy. And the architecture is way more continental Europe rather than Iceland, unfortunately. But this book is about Rachel, who lives in London with her boyfriend, not even fiance, he hasn't even proposed, that guy, Adam. Now I have my thoughts about Adam because he doesn't appreciate Rachel. He takes the relationship, he takes Rachel completely for granted. He takes the future for granted. Like, this is how things are gonna go, and he doesn't talk to, like, communication, man. Communications, just talk with you people. So Rachel works for this company called Snug, and Snug is opening up a new store in Iceland. Therefore the title Snug in Iceland, but also Snug in Iceland because Rachel is very snug in Iceland. I love the title. And in Iceland she meets Jonas, the tour guide, who they become fast friends and a little bit more. Overall, this is such a sweet little love story. There's nothing complicated about it. It flows steadily. And that's the thing that I do appreciate, even though I'm not the target demographic for I'm not the target audience for this book because I'm not really a romance reader. But I really, really appreciate this book. And the thing that I really appreciate about romance novels is that you do know the ending. We know that the end is going to be happy. We know it's going to be romantic, hence romance. But we don't know how we're going to get there. We don't know what the journey is going to be. And what I have to say about Walker's writing style is I do appreciate it. I say appreciate a lot. Like, that means I like it. Her descriptions are inspiring, really. The way that she describes when Rachel comes to Iceland, and it's in, I think it's in December. I mean, it's dark. The way that she describes the darkness, the way she describes Rachel's, like, she goes straight to the Blue Lagoon, and the dreamy, romantic way that she describes the Blue Lagoon. Atmosphere. She really gets the atmosphere. How she describes the snow falling in Reykjavik late at night. How she describes the old wooden floor. She definitely has done her research because she uses as a, is this spoilery? No, this is not spoilery, because I really don't want to spoil this book. It's so, But at one point, when they are preparing to open up this new store, they are hampered a little bit by the fact that the store is opening in a historical part of Reykjavik, and there is preservation, and the floor poses a little bit of setback. which causes a delay, which means that Rachel has to spend a little bit more time in Reykjavik, giving her a little bit more time to get to know Jonas and Adam basically as well. But yeah, like I said in that other video, she romanticizes her character eating a hot dog. And I know that stand. I haven't had the pleasure of eating there, but still, how Walker describes eating that hot dog is like, she makes something that is so common day for me sounds really, really romantic. Like she's literally romanticizing my country, and I can't help but appreciate it. Like, this book was exactly what I needed, especially since I was reading this one and it was disappointing me. So this book was exactly what I needed. I just realized I have such an American and British theme. There are 2 books written by Americans, 2 by Brits, and then there's a 3rd one written by a very, very, very famous British person. This is this month's Discworld novel, Wyrd Sisters, and I already made my video on my Discworld video on this month. This book surprised me. Like, I didn't quite remember it when I was preparing my list for the Discworld novels, the ones that I'm gonna read this year. But as soon as I picked it up from the shelf, I was like, I got giddy, I got so happy, and I'm like, oh wait, is this book? This is Shakespeare, basically. This is one of those. There's another one that is Lord and Ladies, that is more Midsummer's Night Dream. This is more the Scottish play and Hamlet. Yeah, that should be safe. And I love this book. Like, and this is the funny thing about the Discworld novels, because there are so many of them. I did write the list down, and honestly it's going to take me until March in 2024 if I'm going to read 1 Discworld novel a month. So by the plan, if it goes as planned, I should finish the series in 2024. But because there are so many Discworld novels, I don't quite remember all of them until I pick them up and start either rereading or just looking at them, like that one. Those are all the 5 books that I did manage to read this month. I am very pleased with myself. Every book that I managed to finish is a book that I've finished. I do want to read more fiction next month. I mean, there is a Discworld novel, and then there's another themed video that I am actually looking forward to. There are a few books that honestly have quite rave reviews, but I literally bought some books because they had bad reviews, and I cannot wait to work on that video. Because there are at least 3 books that I have yet to read, and I am looking forward to. Like, one of them is I'm a little nervous about that one, but anyway, that's for later. I am very pleased with the books that I did manage to finish this month. I said I'm planning to read way more fiction this year, so stick me to that. Keep me to that. I meant stick me to that. Where did that come from? Anyway, so thank you for watching, and I will hopefully see you in another video on this channel. So yeah, take care. See you later. Bless, bless.